Okay, we are now live, so I guess we can start talking.
Hi, I'm Frishawn from WTFRUreading.com. That's my blog. And I'm here with Erica from the Nyko Reader.
Hey everyone, it's Erica from the channel Maniacal Reader, and today we're discussing the Anna and the French Kiss Trilogy.
And I think that it's really cool that I got a chance to talk to you about this and talk today, because otherwise I wouldn't have finished it if it hadn't been for you. Because I only read Lola and the Boy Next Door. So.
Okay, what made you start with Lola and Next Door versus Anna and the French Kiss?
Because when I went through the books and I was looking, at the different books, for some reason, when I read her synopsis, I think that appealed to me more. So, I think that's why I went with Lola.
Oh, okay. Why don't we talk about Anna and the French Kiss first? What did you think about it overall?
I absolutely loved Anna and the French Kiss. I could totally, relate to her being in France and, being away from her friends. And then, she didn't know if she was going to fit in or not. And then she met St. Clair, who at the time was St. Clair. So, and I was like totally enchanted because I wanted to know where that was going to go.
Yeah, I thought so too. I thought Anna was a quirky character and she was very relatable. I liked her friend group a lot. But I found Rashimi to be the most supportive of her friends, and I just thought that she was the most supportive and that she didn't let her other relationship difficulties bring her friends down, and she seemed that she was always concerned about Anna's feelings, especially when it came to her relationship with Etienne.
Right. And I'm kind of confused about Meredith and her whole dynamic with Etienne or St. Clair. I like calling him St. Clair at first because that was how I was introduced to him, as St. Clair. So I have a tendency to call him that because the only time that I really can relate to him as Etienne is when he and Anna start with their whole relationship thing, because I think that was a big turning point. So up until that point, when he's friends with everybody, to me, he's still St. Clair. So.
Yeah, I thought Etienne Sinclair was a good character, and he was really kind, and I thought that he was really nice. He didn't really know how to back out of his old relationship. He wasn't really sure how to end that relationship, so I found him complacent at some points because of that, but he seemed to have really genuine feelings for Anna, and I liked the funny banter between them.
And as infuriating as that was, because when I say that, I meant the whole thing about him being insecure about his relationship. I could understand it because that was what he was brought up in with his parents. So it's kind of like a monkey see, monkey do thing.
Yeah, and he didn't really know any other way, I find.
So, as much as I wanted to choke him and be like, she's right there, she's in your face. I was like, well, I totally understand why, because he doesn't have the tools to deal with it. And then Anna was so conflicted about, well, should I or shouldn't I? I really want to, until, there was nobody between them going, you go over there and you go over there and you figure out what the hell you're going to do, because both of you are just getting on my nerves. And that's really what I wanted to do, because by the time it got to be spring, I was like, you're going to graduate. And, I just,
yeah,
please let something happen.
I felt the same way. Also that Anna was conflicted about her relationship with Etienne because at the beginning of the book, she was like so wanting to get back to Toph and really see if that relationship was gonna go anywhere. So I could understand her hesitation when it came to jumping into a relationship with Etienne, for sure.
But how did you feel about her relationship with Taupe and her relationship with Bridget? How did that make you feel?
Well, at the beginning, I thought like Bridget was like a genuine friend to her, but once we found out like the twist of like Toph and Bridget together with her being away, I was kind of shocked at that point, and I found that was a good twist. But I kind of felt like the sting of Bridget's betrayal, especially since I was like reading through the point of view again. That kind of hurt me a lot, and I didn't expect it coming in the novel, so that definitely caught me by surprise.
I felt a little bit differently because I was like, well, you're kind of doing the same thing with Etienne and the whole Meredith situation, so you can't really be, I was kind of conflicted about that point, and I was like, especially after Thanksgiving, and that whole thing, so.
Yeah, and I I felt that like uh, Anna was kind of with Etienne, and she was spending time with him. So I understand the Thanksgiving thing, but I also think like Toph's email to her was sort of friendly, but at that point I could tell that Toph wasn't really into her at
Right.
that time, so she only had feelings for Toph that were one-sided. So
Exactly. So, her whole thing with Bridget, I mean, she has to realize she wasn't even in the country.
yeah,
So, how could she even expect somebody to be, oh, I'm just going to love you forever when you just sat up there and moved to France?
yeah, that didn't really make sense to me either. Like, I don't understand what Anna was waiting for, especially if she was like thousands of miles away.
And then she was about to, I mean, she's like on the verge of declaring her undying love to Etienne. And then all of a sudden she's going to get all conflicted over what's happening in Atlanta with two people that I'm like, okay, well. So,
Yeah. Well, she's never had like a first real relationship, right? So it's all about navigating those like first love feelings and not really being sure what to do. So I kind of like identified with her at that situation because like once like emotions are involved, people don't often have like a clear head, especially someone who doesn't really have a lot of dating experience. So I kind of understood where like Anna was coming from, but at the same time the confusion and everything and just it kind of being dragged on kind of makes sense to me too.
I completely understand. If you
Yeah.
see me looking down, I'm looking at my Kindle,
Um,
and that's what I'm doing. So, because as we're talking, I'm like getting frame of reference about what we're talking about. But, I was just totally, the whole thing was just so convoluted and sweet, and there was always something going on. Somebody always had some drama, and then Etienne had the whole thing going on with his parents, and then she had the whole thing going on with her mom and her dad, and I was
yeah.
just like, you know, who wouldn't be confused with all that going on?
Yeah, I especially liked that emotional twist surrounding Etienne's family. It came as a surprise to me because I just thought like this was a fluffy romance, and I thought that side story with Etienne and his mom added a little bit of like more emotional depth to the book, which I
Right.
enjoyed a lot.
It really it rounded it out, because if it just had have been, just them, just friends, just, teenage stuff, then it would have been okay. and I would have been bored in like 5.3 seconds. But with him going through everything that he was going through, and with his father being so controlling, my heart was on the floor. It
Yeah,
was awful.
yeah. It's hard to deal with like a controlling parent where you don't really feel like you have any control over your life at all, or control of any decisions that you want to make for yourself. You kind of
Right.
feel stuck.
And for him to be, as sweet and compassionate and everything that he was, and then for his dad to turn around and do that, and you were never sure if, his mom was something was going to happen with his mom before, he got a chance to see her. So you're sitting there just biting nails and
Yeah. She really did a good job with the writings all there, adding all of that emotional tension. I thought he did a really good job with that.
she did. It was awesome. I mean, and it was just so great. And like I said, my heart was on the floor the whole time, and I
Yeah.
don't understand why I never read that book before. I feel so stupid now because I could have like read the book and been.
Yeah, I agree. I especially liked the ending of the book where they cleared up all of the misunderstandings in their relationship, and like Etienne was wondering why she was like dating Dave, because Etienne wasn't really available at that point. But I'm glad with how the book ended, and that they like cleared the air with each other, and like finally realized that they loved each other on top of that Notre Dame temple or whatever it was.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And there's the cover. Well, actually, that's the old cover,
Yeah.
and I kind of did it on purpose because I like the old cover.
Oh,
So,
okay. I only
so
have the new covers, the pink, orange, and the green one. I kind of think like they're more colorful in my opinion, but I don't mind the old covers. I like covers with like characters' faces on them. So
right,
characters covers like that don't bother me
right. Um, but I really like this cover because you can't hold on. You can't really see Etienne, which was kind of what was going on in the whole book. Because when this cover came out, I was kind of mad. I was like, how come you can't see him? That makes no sense. But after you read the book and you understand that he develops as a character, so you don't really see him until the end, and she doesn't really see him until the end either, so it's kind of appropriate.
Yeah, in that case, that cover makes sense. I see what you're going with there.
And so, I mean, I just love the whole book. It was gorgeous, it was heartfelt, it just kept me up because I was up till 2 o'clock in the morning reading this book. Literally, I was just sitting there like, with my Kindle just glued.
Oh
So
yeah, I read Anna and the French Kiss and Lola and the Boy Next Door, and I learned Happily Ever After. Her in that order. Her like last week or I think a week and a half ago. So
mhm.
I never jumped around in the trilogy, but I enjoyed them all.
I absolutely love them, and I feel so stupid now because they should be somewhere in my house on
Yeah,
my shelves, and I don't have them, and so now I have to go buy them.
yeah. I like paperback books, and if I didn't have a physical copy, I would say the same thing. These books are meant to be reread and like owned because they're that good.
They're I mean, and I read all the time. Okay, I have so many, but I'm in my room right now, and like if I turn this camera around and you look to see all the books that I have to read, you'd be like, oh my goodness. And these are books that I have to read for review. So I dropped all of those books to read, and then the French Kiss, and that's something that I don't regret it at all. I would
Um,
do it again. So.
I don't really have many books for review, but I do have a lot of unread books from my own collection. And since I'm new to YA contemporary, this is definitely a trilogy that I can see myself rereading again.
I would definitely reread it again. It's her and Jennifer E. Smith. Those are two people that like I would drop everything to read anything that they make. I would just there's like automatic auto buy for me.
Uh,
So
I should make a video about autobiographers on my channel. That would be a good idea. I
yeah, I
haven't,
would definitely watch that.
yeah, I haven't read Jennifer E. Smith books yet, but I've heard of them and they're on my wish list. So maybe I'll get them in the near future. Who knows?
Well, if you read her, I think we'll definitely be doing another live show because she writes a lot in the same way that Stephanie Perkins does. So
Okay. What are the differences between her and Jennifer E. Smith?
um, really, the only differences between Jennifer E. Smith and Stephanie Perkins is that I can't really think of any actually because she does a lot of things where people meet by accident. Oh yeah, that's it. People meet by accident with her. It's not always somebody that they don't know each other like beforehand. They don't live next door. She does a lot of like people meeting on planes or meeting because somebody misdirects emails and all that kind of stuff. So
That makes sense. I read some of the Goodreads synopses for her books, and I always kind of get that impression whenever I read like a Goodreads teaser or like a synopsis of a book.
but because the first Jennifer E. Smith book that I read was the statistical probability of love at first sight, and that book made me curse. So, and I wrote a review about it that was like a first person review because normally I don't put myself in my reviews, but her books make me do that. And it's the same thing with Stephanie Perkins. Her books make me write reviews in first person, which I don't do that.
Okay. Um, what makes you decide to not write reviews in first person?
Usually because when I write reviews, I try to write general reviews where I'm telling people about the book and giving them a chance to put themselves inside of the review. Because I don't write reviews for me, I write them for other people. But when I'm really affected by a book, then I have to put myself in the book and say, I liked it for this reason. I liked it because this happened.
Yeah,
But like when you're writing a review for copy or when you're writing a review for a publication, they teach you not to do that. So in order for something to make me do that, it has to be very special.
that makes sense. And it's good that Stephanie Burke evokes that personal emotion in you and that you'd want to share it with others. That's a mark of a good writer, I think.
It is. It's a mark of a great writer. And for her to write, she writes very young, and I'm older. So for her to make that transition into, my age group and into the adult age group, and for me to be able to relate to what she's writing, that's excellent.
Um, yeah, that's important because not everyone who is a young adult reads young adult, and I'm 22, so I'm like in that new adult age group bracket, and I feel that like even I identify with young adult still. So young adult that just doesn't have to be read by teenagers; it could be read by anyone, which is I think is important to know.
It is. It's very important.
Yeah.
And That's part of the reason, truthfully, that I'm addicted to your channel, because you read the same thing I do. And most of the stuff on YouTube is geared towards young adults. So when I find somebody that reads the same stuff I do, I'm like, oh, I'm going to watch her. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's always nice to find people that have similar tastes in reading than you do. Even like different reading tastes, you could always get like a different perspective, or you could like pick up a new book that you wouldn't necessarily read if you hadn't watched their channel. So I think that's a good thing about BookTube. There are so many of us out there that you could watch like any channel you want and always find something new to read. Maybe something unexpected, which is a good thing too.
So what about Stephanie Perkins made you like say, okay, I'll pick this up? Because knowing you and watching your channel, she seems a bit different from what you usually would pick up and be like, okay, I'm going to read this. So,
Well, at heart, I've always been a romantic, and I've never really gotten into contemporary until now. But since I've like watched Cassidy Voiche's channel and that she reads like a lot of um, new adult and a lot of YA contemporary, I've always wanted to like get into that genre. Since in my head, I've always been like a mushy romantic. I haven't really gotten into the contemporary genre that much.
cool. And so, now that you've kind of breached the waters a little bit, do you think that you're going to kind of explore it? And do you think that that'll be something that we'll see on your channel?
Oh yeah, I could definitely see myself reading more contemporary. I have like a whole shelf of contemporary that I haven't read yet, so I'm planning on continuing to read contemporary for a while, whether that's like YA contemporary or new adult contemporary. I've been bitten by the contemporary bug, so to speak.
Oh, wow. So that means that I'll be watching your channel a lot more. I read a lot of contemporary, so
Yeah, I also like Bookable's channel. She often reads a lot of like YA and adult contemporary too.
okay. Um, well, I have a channel, but I haven't really done much with it because
Yeah,
I'm always writing stuff. So hopefully sometime before, you know, the world stops spinning on its axis, maybe I will get to and produce some content on my channel. So,
yeah,
um,
that would be good. I noticed that you haven't posted a video in a while.
I haven't posted anything in a very, very long time. So
Yeah,
I'm bad for Sean. Okay. But
that's
I
okay.
will. I'll post. But I do post in my blog every day. So
That's
um,
good. It can be hard to manage both a YouTube channel and a blog, but I know that like some booktubers out there do both, and that's good.
it's
I bet.
hard, like when you have to blog, because I blog every single day except for today because I was getting ready for the live show, so I didn't blog today. But I blog every single day. So you have to read, then you have to blog, then you have to read, then you have to blog, then you have to take all your posts and put them everywhere and send them back to the publisher. So
Yeah,
um,
that can be a lot of work, and there's also a lot of work when it comes to like booktubing too. They're just like different mediums. You're always filming a video or editing one or reading a new book and writing a review on Goodreads. So there's a lot of stuff that goes into it too. It's a different platform.
So how do you balance your reading schedule? Because you post very regularly, and your videos are gorgeous. So how do you find time to edit and read and post and
Uh, it's just a balance. I would say that even without BookTube, I've always been able to read like 2 to 3 books a week, even before I even got started on my channel. And I post 2 videos a week, so like I film both videos in one day, one week, and then I edit them like the next day, and then I upload them the next day to my channel. So it's all about balance. But I do a lot of pre-filming, I would say. I don't just like randomly decide to like post this video one day and then this video another day. Like I have like lists and the schedule all written out. So it takes a lot of planning and a lot of pre-filming. And that way, like when you pre-film, it's not so stressful to like manage your channel and read at the same time, because once I'm done the filming and editing version, all I have to do is wait for the uploading, and then the rest of my week could be consumed with reading. So that's
How do you deal with, because I have those days when I'm blogging, when I'm like, I don't want to blog today. So how do you deal with that? How do you deal with the fact that you're on a schedule, you have a following, and there are those days when you're like, can I please do something else today?
Oh, well, for me, if I'm tired or like sick or something, and I really don't feel like filming or editing or anything, I just like don't, and like do what I want to do, even though I am on a schedule. There does come a point where like you just won't feel like it, and like even though I do have a following, I shouldn't like feel pressure to like stick to a schedule absolutely 100% of the time. Like I do have a life outside of booktubing, and like if I don't feel like it one day or if I'm sick, it's not the end of the world if I don't post a video on this one day. I could always get back to it the next week when I am feeling better.
And you're one of the few booktubers that I have honestly heard say that, because everybody else is like, I feel so bad when I miss days, and and they come on and they apologize, and there's all of this contrition going on, and I'm like, it's your channel.
Yeah, I kind of feel the same way. Like initially, when I get sick or tired or something like that, I say, "Oh, I should have posted this on this day." But like when I take a step back and like really think about it, I always get that perspective. Like there's no one like pressuring me to do this certain thing now, and it's all up to me when I want to get back into it and things like that. Especially when I'm like in school.
Mhm.
Before I graduated, I always used to like feel so bad that I'm off my channel for like 2 or 2.5 weeks, sometimes a couple of months at a time if I have like tests and midterms and exams back to back. It could be really hard to balance like when you're in school, but your real life comes first ahead of like a blog or book.
The only time that I feel like that is if because I'm on a lot of blog tours. So the only time I feel like that is if I miss a blog tour, because I'm scheduled to post on this date or whatever the case may be. So that's the only time that I ever feel that way, because I have a tendency to overbook myself. It's like, oh, I like that book, I want it, so I'm gonna book myself for this blog tour, and before I know it, I have a month full of blog tours, and I'm like, do I honestly have do I have time to read 18 books for 18 different book tours? So
Yeah, I think it's all about like looking at your schedule and being realistic about what you can do, and not be like overstressed or like overwork yourself, because then you're just like gonna get burned out and feel really bad that you're letting like everyone down. The important thing is to just like do what's best for you, and if you're happy with what you're doing, the rest is just gonna kind of follow itself and continue on,
Right. So, I sometimes I really do. I get those moments when I'm like, I really have to read this book for this book tour. But then the other thing that does it is like if I have to read something and it's not good, but I have to read it because I'm on book tour. So I'm stuck, you know. And that's just about my only problem is when I have to read something and it's not good and I'm stuck reading it, or because I've been blogging for 5 years, so I blog for like everybody. I blog for Simon and Schuster. I blog for HarperCollins, and a lot of times they have you blogging for famous people. And if you read somebody's book that's really famous and the book sucks and you have to do a review of the book and you have to be honest, and it's like,
Yeah,
I
that's
mean,
in
that's
those cases. In those cases, there's like oh some pressure to like do a good job and things like that. But I think even with a negative review, it's important to be honest and at least point out some positive aspects, or like at least point out the positive things that you think other people would enjoy about the book. That way, the review is not um, completely negative. That's what I learned when I went to BEA anyway. That's something that I picked up on.
and how was VEA for you? Because I've never been yet. So
Oh,
when I watched your
it
video,
was
I saw
absolutely phenomenal. I met some booktubers that I subscribed to, and I did talk to them throughout the week. It was a surreal experience, and I did get a lot of arcs and free books. And since I'm relatively a new booktuber, I haven't really gotten arcs from like publishers and things like that yet. So um, BEA was a good experience for me when it came to getting arcs. But I did enjoy going to the panels and seeing Chicago because I'm from a small city, so I don't really get to see that big city experience that often,
right,
which is kind of cool for me.
right. But the longer that you booktube and the longer that you're out here, the arcs will come. And when they start coming, they don't stop coming. They don't. And it because when I first started blogging, I didn't get anything, and then I got, I think my first arc was from Little Brown, and that was they were supposed to send me something and it took a long time, or they didn't, or something happened, and I ended up contacting the publicist, and then I started getting on people's lists, and now it's like, because I've been blogging for 5 years, so now it's like the books, they just come, and if they're not coming through to my house, they're coming through my email. So it's like, whoa.
Yeah, I think that could get like overwhelming, especially when they start coming. But I think the important thing to do is like not accept everything, only accept the books that you're going to read in the near future, or that you know that you'll like. I've picked up on that too from a few other booktubers, so I've always kept that piece of advice in mind.
um People say that to you. Honestly, I'm gonna be really, really transparent about that.
Yeah,
But people say that to you, but when it gets to the point, like the point that I'm at now, because I've been doing this for so long, and publicists know you, and publishers know you, so they send you things, and they say, "Here, you can have it. You can have it," and you're like, "Okay, I can have it." And I might read it or I might not read it. And see, that's the thing. They understand that you may or may not read this book. They're not, if it's something that they want you to read like immediately, they're going to tell you this is coming out on blah, 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 and you need to read this. And you can even ask them, to please, if it's something that is an immediate release or something that you really want me to handle, let me know. And they will be more than happy to do that, you
Yeah.
know. So
Mm,
don't be afraid of when you do start receiving your ARCs or whatever. Don't be afraid of your publicist. The other thing is that when you start receiving your ARCs and you get into a situation where you have a publicist that you work with, call them. They like that because it's easier for them to relate and it's easier for them to get to know you and know who you are. You don't necessarily have to email them because they get so many emails all the time, so they don't necessarily get a feel for who you are that way. But like if you call them and introduce yourself and say, "Hi, I'm blah blah blah, my channel is blah blah blah," then they know
yeah,
who you are when that email comes.
that would make sense. I've always taken a direct approach in life to like almost everything, so um, I think I would be like a direct person. I used to be like shy in the past, but I've grown to like be my more direct self, which I think is a good thing.
It is. And see, the thing that book bloggers and bloggers, we don't, and it took me a while to understand this, is that we work for them. Okay. This is a job. We're out there doing publicity for these people.
Right.
We're doing this. Okay. So we need their support. We need them to be like, if you have an issue, let me know. That's why they're there. They're publicists. It's
Yeah.
their job to publicize this book or whatever it is. So if you can help them do that in any way, then they're more than happy to help you. If there's something that you need, if they send you a book, because a lot of times they send me books that are like the third book in the series or something, and I have to email them or call them and be like, I haven't read this series at all. Is there any way that you can send me book two, so that I can have an understanding of it? Um,
Yeah.
the other piece of advice that I can give you is if you can, please save a tree, ask for an e-arc, please, because they don't expire. You can keep them in your e-reader forever. It's easier on the publisher, and that shows a level of respect. So if you don't read it, it's not somewhere sitting in your house
Yeah,
looking at.
that makes sense. I've heard that like it's more affordable for publishers to send you e-arcs of books that they want you to read. So I might get into that in the future for sure.
And it's easier. You can take it with you. Especially, I find that because I have a Kindle, and this is a trick that a lot of people don't know. Um, you can turn your Kindle into an audiobook because any e-arc that you get will automatically be read by your text to speech option in your Kindle. So
Yeah,
so you can sit there or do whatever you have to do and read a book at the same time because your Kindle will read it to you. So,
yeah, that makes sense too. But why don't we get back to discussing Lola and the Boy Next Door now that we've discussed um, Anna and the French Kiss and just sort of the publishing world in general.
okay. So, that Lola is my favorite. So,
And it's
and
my favorite too.
what was it that you liked about Lola?
Um, I think that I was more attracted to the relationship in this book because Lola and Crick had like a true friendship before they became romantically involved. I think that's why I was sucked into their relationship a little more.
Right. And like I'm from the US and I lived in California, so I'm really partial to San Francisco. So
Yeah,
having that as a setting for a book, um, and having, Lola's parental situation where she had the two dad situation, I was like, Oh wow, and the fact that she was such a colorful character and she was just odd and she was just Lola.
Yeah, she is definitely a very unique character, one that I haven't run across a lot with what I've read before, but that's why I was immediately attracted to her because she was just her own person, and I think I liked that about her. She wasn't afraid to like speak her mind and just truly be who she is.
Right. And like how I know that this isn't fair and it kind of like puts you on the spot, but I have to do it. I know that you loved Etienne, but how does Cricket compare in your mind to Etienne?
Um, I think I like Cricket a little more because he seems like sweeter in terms of like not wanting to like overstep his boundaries with her and just be that friend until he's really ready to tell her that he's loved her. And I think Cricket physically is like a taller guy, and I always like a taller guy in comparison to like a shorter guy. So I think in that way also I like Cricket a little bit more, which is good.
Cricket to me, because I don't know why, but every time I think of Cricket, I think of Joaquin Phoenix. So,
Who is that?
and Joaquin Phoenix was he played Johnny Cash in Walk the Line with you, and
Oh
he's really
yeah, I've
tall and
I've seen that movie.
right.
Didn't know his name, but
So
I like that movie.
exactly. So every time I think of Cricket, I think of Joaquin Phoenix, and
Okay.
so that made me fall in love with Cricket. And then, like you said, he was just so sweet, and I was like, oh. And then and there was the part where they lived next door, so there was like always this waiting because I was always waiting to see one of them like cross the other one's path or whatever.
Yeah, and when he made that like sort of bridge from his claw, in between their houses, I thought that moment was so sweet.
I mean, and there was just so much stuff that just had me I was just so in love with the two of them because they were so cute.
Yeah,
And
and especially with her painting his nails in
I remember that was so
yeah, 'cause she was trying to find a way to be closer.
cute.
And
So,
he complimented on her nails, and then she offered to paint his nails.
and then the fact that he let her do it, I was like, there was no protesting. He was just like, okay, and I'm just like, oh, that's love. That's
Yeah, and like at that point, I really knew that his like feelings were genuine and like right there for her to see. So
oh, and then the whole thing with the moving away thing, I was like, the sense of loss and everything with how they with when I think it was when somebody moved in and they had just lost um at the beginning. So
yeah,
how everything started, I was like, oh, but that was a book that had me from like page one. I was just like totally in there
me as
with it.
well. I found that like what also created like some strain in their relationship was like the insane like jealous and possessiveness of his twin sister Calliope, and the fact
Right.
that she was always getting in the way of their relationship. I thought that made things even more difficult.
Yeah, because it's hard to, when you have that family thing where, your loyalties are split, because it's like, this is the person I love, but this is my sister. It's like, how? And I'm sitting there and that was the point where I started literally screaming at the book. It was like, my cats were like, she's gone. She's not. She, it's okay. It's over.
Yeah, I thought that too. I always felt like Cricket was like stuck in his hard place, and that his life was overshadowed by the hectic and um, sort of heightened life of his sister being this famous figure skater and things like that. But I'm glad that as he grew up, he finally had a chance to make choices that benefit him or choices that he wanted.
Yeah, but the fact that she had the life that she had, that kept me from hating her too much, and that was part of what kind of tore me up because I wanted to dislike her really badly.
Okay. Um. Yeah. I didn't. I disliked her slightly at some points, but I appreciated that she had this ambitious lifestyle and that she was um trying to like accomplish a lifelong goal of hers. I thought that was really commendable.
And that was where my problem came in because at one point I was like, "Ooh, I want to strangle you," and at the other point I was like, "But her life is just so it oh my
Yeah. And
heart."
like, there's a lot of training that goes into um being a figure skater, and her schedules are so hectic, and then the changing of coach is here and there, and it can get it's so busy so fast. But at least she was happy with the life he made, and she ended up accomplishing her goal in the end, which is really awesome.
But then that also left me feeling bad for Cricket because he was like that child that was just kind of there. You know, there's the one that has all this stuff and she's taking all this focus, and then there's Cricket. Cricket's just
Yeah,
there.
um, Cricket seemed like to live his life on the side, and most of the time, at least that's the impression I got from reading the book, especially in their childhood parts and stuff like that.
And I felt bad about that. And that was part of it. Seems like the way that Stephanie Perkins writes is there's always some sort of unanswered need in her leading characters that like draws them to each other.
Yeah, I would say so too. Like, especially with this book, because Cricket like never really had the opportunity to express his feelings towards her. Not very much, because they were always like bouncing around from here and there in childhood. But he's always loved her through it all.
See,
Yeah.
now I want to go read it again and be all in my cover with the Kleenex.
I also think that Cricket's sister Calliope had like some misconceptions or like some misjudgments about Lola, and that she was always trying to steal him away from her and things like that. That sort of like catty girl on girl thing. I didn't really care for in the novel that much, but at least it had some conflict, and it's I could definitely see that happening, especially with young girls.
Yeah, it can. But everything that Stephanie Perkins put into that book was totally believable. There was nothing in there that was like, why is this here?
Yeah,
Because
it's totally realistic and relatable in my opinion. So
because
it definitely makes sense.
right, because even in the case of Calliope, if your world is as closed as hers is with all the training and all of that, you don't really get out and meet people. So you have a tendency to like kind of glom on to the few people that you have in your life. So it was totally understandable that she wouldn't be too keen on
Oh
Lola.
yeah, I completely agree with that for sure. speaking of family and things like that, what did you think of Lola's parents' relationship through and how they
I
handled certain things?
I love Lola's parents. I mean, and the reason that I love Lola's parents is because they didn't always get it right. And they didn't try to, and they kind of like put it in your face, like, this is who we are. We're gonna make mistakes, but we're gonna do things the way that we want to do them, and we're here for our daughter. And because of that, I was just totally, I was totally in it. 2 feet, both hands, everything.
Oh yeah, I was in it too. Especially with characters in that situation. There's always judgments from people in the outside world, and like in that situation, you don't always know what the right thing to do is, but at least like they supported her 100% in
Yeah.
nearly everything she did, and they raised her to be a good person, especially because of where she came from, with like a drunk alcoholic mom who wasn't really present in her life. So I think they were really good parents.
And then plus they encouraged her to be unique. They were never trying to shove her into this mold or make her into this person. So, that really did it for me. I was completely
Yeah,
sold on.
um, I agree with that too. It's important to let people be who they are and not try to control them or make them into the person that you want them to be. You know.
And I think that that was the biggest overall theme of the book, kind of really, was
Yeah,
that, because she was trying to do the same thing for Cricket, because Cricket was so unsure about almost everything else in his life besides how he felt about Lola. So,
yeah. I could see that happening too. What did you think about Max in the book? Did you like him at all?
I mean, he had his moments, but he was kind of a character that was kind of easy to overlook. Like, you know, he's like that stain in the carpet that you cover up with the rug. So,
Yeah, I could have easily overlooked him too. He didn't really have that big of a role in the book, but I'm glad that I met him, especially considering like who Lola like chose to be with when Cricket was like away or not in her life. So it just to me his character sort of like illuminated Lola's past without Cricket.
but he did that, but he was also
Yeah,
like a big question mark. You're sitting there going, Lola, why? Out of everybody that you could have picked, you picked him?
yeah,
Why?
I,
So,
I agree, and like he wasn't really like supportive of when she did things in the book, and like he was just sort of there, like, can we go now? Or like when Max was like meeting her friends, can you just tell them I said bye and things like that. He wasn't really invested in her as a person, and then he seemed like he's wanted to get away from her or out of there or whatever situation they were in. You know.
I know. It was kind of like her and Max is like kind of like standing next to a cactus. I mean, really? I
Yeah,
did.
they were different in age, and that I assume that could be like an attractive quality at the beginning of a relationship, but Max didn't really have a lot of meat to him or like any depth at all. He was just like the boy that she was with, but he didn't really do anything.
Right. I mean, he was what, algae or something? I don't
Yeah,
know.
yeah, and but it would make sense that Lola wouldn't know what to do, like, cause she really cared for her Max, and she really cared for Cricket, so at one point it was hard for her to choose who to be with. But once she saw Max's true colors of how he really felt about her, then her decision or and her situation became crystal clear, you know.
Yeah, but I that also made me feel bad because there was like I wanted to smack somebody. I didn't know who, but you know, but the fact that she made Cricket wait and that she didn't know and that she was indecisive and there he was with his little heart just out there like and I'm like what?
Yeah. I also like their little conversations with the moon in this book, um, and his story at the end, like about the stars and the moon and space and everything like that. I thought that was like a sweet touch to the novel as well.
Yep. I mean, for some reason, it seems like Stephanie Perkins always puts um, those little touches in there, like and in the French Kiss, it was the buildings and the architecture, and then with Cricket and with Lola, it's the moon. So it's like,
Yeah. She always has like some scenic element to her books. I find that kind of like tie in to the theme of the novel or the theme of what's going on, and I can appreciate that. I think it's important for authors to like dig deep or find other elements in the book besides like the main story to illustrate what's going on or to um, to make the book have a little extra meaning.
right. And it was just a beautiful experience. I loved the whole entire book. It's my favorite. You
Yeah.
know,
Um.
it
Since I Lola and the Boy Next Door is one of those great contemporary romances I've read from like what I've read so far, and it's definitely gonna be a favorite of mine this year. I think. Depending on how many other contemporaries I read, but Lola and the Boy Next Door is certainly. Oh. Um. Lola and the Boy Next Door is certainly a a a good read that'll like stand the test of time in terms of those really good romances.
right. It kind of makes you think of like the older movies that they had, like when Marilyn Monroe and all those people like that were doing movies, and they would fall in love with the people downstairs or the people that live next door. It's kind of like that.
Um, yeah, I haven't really watched a lot of like 50s movies or like old romantic movies, but I could see that those old movies have like an old romantic tone from the vague idea that I do have about them, and I think
Right.
this book definitely had uh, sort of like an old romantic tone to it, but it was like set in present day. Cricket definitely seemed like an old soul or a character that has a lot of wisdom to him.
Right. And it was very sweet. It was romantic. It wasn't like, oh my God, I want to jump him. It was just romantic and sweet, and you wanted to fall in love with them, and you wanted them to fall in love, and everybody just wanted to fall in love. And
Yeah, that definitely um, there's definitely a romantic tone to it, and like not all of YA books or even like new adult books have to be about sex. I think at the core of relationships, it's supposed to be about romance.
that was something that Stephanie Perkins did without making it, because a lot of contemporary, especially contemporary that's written like that, it's in your face that this is going to be romantic because I said so, and with
Yeah,
her. It's not like that.
Yeah, I thought that like her relationships, it just naturally happens over time and things build. Those are the romances that I actually do like. I don't really like a lot of instant love or anything like that. So her books are definitely something I can appreciate for sure. So why don't we move on to talking about Isla and the Happily Ever After, unless there's something else that you wanted to say about Lola. Any final thoughts?
No, I don't have anything to say about Lola except if you haven't read it, why not? And
Yeah, I would definitely recommend this trilogy for sure. It's definitely one of the good ones that can be read over and over and over again. So, what did you think about Isla and the Happily Ever After?
Isla and the Happily Ever After, truthfully, it was kind of a letdown for me after Etienne and after Anna and after Cricket and after Lola. It kind of felt to me like she had to get another book out there.
Yeah,
So
um, I kind of felt the same way. Isla and the Happily Ever After, for me, is my least favorite book of the trilogy because I found that the relationship, although it was genuine, you could definitely get that from the characters, I think it developed a little too quickly for me, and I found a hard time believing that the characters had such a strong emotional connection with each other, considering that he just like met each other and stuff like that. So there
right.
was a little bit of instant love for me there, which I didn't really like. So.
I don't know if this was just me, but and you can tell me if you kind of felt it too. But Isla didn't even seem to be. It felt like it was written by somebody else compared to the other two. It was like
Um, yeah, I don't know if it was like written by somebody else, but it definitely had a rushed tone in my opinion. And the pacing of the plot and the novel just wasn't the same as the other two. I noticed that difference right away.
it didn't feel. It was kind of like okay, I remembered from Anna, so that kind of gave me a frame of reference. And if I hadn't have had that frame of reference, I would have been totally out in left field somewhere, going, okay, who is this person? You know,
Yeah,
because even though I know that it's Stephanie Perkins, you know how sometimes when you read an author when they first start doing something and then you put their books down and you don't read them anymore and then you read them years later and they've changed, it kind of felt like that. So
yeah. I, I also I also felt the same way. Although, like, I think overall, um, at, Stephanie Perkins was to like the true to the idea of a romance and making it good once we get got past that beginning part of the relationship. Then I started to see the story be a little more fleshed out once you get further into reading it.
I really liked Isla, and I think that that was the biggest thing that kept me reading is because I liked her and I wanted the best for her, and everything that she went through hurt me. And I was like, why is this happening to this person? Because she was just so sweet, and she, I fought for her more so than I did her leading man. She was the big draw for me in the book.
Okay. I kind of had the opposite reaction. I kind of felt like I identified with Josh, and I felt so connected with him because, like, he's a creative type, and like he sort of views the world differently than a lot of other characters I've read before. And since I aspire to be like an editor and an author, I identified with him in that way. Also, I found that like Josh had a good picture of what he wanted for his future, and I kind of got that opposite feeling from Eilish. Josh was a sweet guy, but he had direction, but he also had his own problems to deal with. And Isla was the exact opposite. She had no clue of what she wanted to do after high school, and no idea who she was as a person.
Right. But like that was the thing that drew me to her was the fact that she didn't know and the fact that she
Yeah,
didn't have a clue and the fact that she always seemed to be just like left of center or not even know where center was. So
yeah. I think a lot of young teenage girls and maybe even people in their 20s still have like no idea what's going on in their life. I think that's the majority feeling. I think that people have when they're young and they're still trying to figure things out. I kind of fall on the opposite end of the spectrum, but I think the majority of young people will kind of feel that way. Their life isn't figured out, and they just sort of like let life run its course. Like if this happens, I'll go this way, but then if that happens, I'll go this other way. You know?
see, so I can tell because I'm that way. So I
Yeah,
can totally see why we're on opposite ends of the spectrum because I'm
yeah,
more like Isla and you're more like Josh. So
yeah,
I think that that's really cool. I also think that the fact that Josh was so grounded and so determined and so, aware was kind of I think that he kind of helped Isla in a way, or at least tried to when he
yeah. And
wasn't.
I think the relationship sort of grounded Isla and gave her direction in life. That's kind of what I said in my review, and because that relationship sort of like grounded her and gave her direction, and she took comfort in that, like finally being stable somewhere, finally being comfortable with where she's at.
And I just, that made me love Josh. Although, okay, and here I go because I'm reverting back to Anna because I liked Josh in Anna. So I really wanted to, see more of his story. So I liked Isla for that reason.
Yeah,
Um, it was the fact that, and that's what kept me reading was it wasn't so much the book itself, it was the fact that I have fallen in love with Josh from Anna. So
yeah, I really liked Josh and Ed too, and I was looking forward to his story coming up in this third book. So I kind of felt the same way.
how do you feel about the fact that, there was the tie-in between book one and book three, and then book two was just kind of out there?
Um, I I At the end, I was glad that Lola and Cricket were sort of tied in, but it would make sense that book three and book one would be more tied together because Josh was originally Sinclair's friend, right? So I could
Right.
understand there being more of a tie there, but I'm glad that Lola and the boy next door was sort of tied in there somehow, which is a good thing. But I wasn't really surprised that like Lola and the boy next door was kind of left in the wind because Lola and Cricket would be like brand new friends joining this group, right? Versus like um this this group of friends that was like already established and already known in book one. So I kind of
Right.
understand the author's decisions there, but I would have liked to see maybe a little bit more of Lola and Cricket in the third book. But
I mean, do you, I kind of think that there was a lot of stuff in book 3 that kind of was open ended, and it kind of made me think for a while that there was going to be like a book 4. But maybe that was wishful thinking on my part because it just seemed like, she left a lot of open ends there.
Yeah, I think that I wasn't expecting for a closed ending. Like, I knew that they would probably end up together, but I think the whole point of how they got started is that it's okay to have unknowns in your story. It's okay to not know where you're going, just as long as you're happy with where you're at and you try to make good decisions in the moment, you know.
Yep. That worked in the story, but it drove me crazy because, I'm one of these people that when something ends, or when I'm getting the feeling that something ends, I want it to be over because if it's not, my imagination gets in there and I just start driving myself crazy with
Yeah.
what
Um,
could have happened.
yeah. I don't really I like a lot of closed threads in a book, but every once in a while I don't mind if a thread is left open here and there because it it lets you explore your own imagination and makes you think of ideas of where you want the characters to end up or what you want to happen next, depending on who's reading the book. We all have different perspectives on the same book, right? So,
It's a good thing unless you're
yeah,
me and then you go
yeah,
off on these wild tangents and you're
yeah,
like,
yeah. Um, I find that like if a book is too open ended, like completely open ended, then you can get these like wild, wild things of what's gonna happen in the future. But at least the author left the book mostly closed and kind of like gave the reader like she ends up together, you know, where she ends up in school or what they end up doing next isn't really that important. She wanted to leave the relationship as the focal point, and I think she did that really nicely.
she did, but the only thing about it that makes it, I think, for me, what made it so important that everything be closed is that I had so much invested by the time I got to the third book that I was like, I just want to know what everybody's doing. It was just like you wanted it to just be set in stone. You didn't want to think about what was going on because you had been through book 1 and then there was book 2 and now there's book 3 and so
Yeah. Um, I kind of see where you're kind of in from. I guess it's good with 2 points of view and things like that. You know, everyone has their own interpretation. We can't all think the same. But what did you think of um Josh's book that he was creating? All those drawings and things like that.
I love that. And I think that because Josh is who he is, the fact that, you did have that element of him that was outside of the romance and stuff, it answered all of those questions about him and, gave you another point of view about him. So,
Um, Absolutely. I kind of felt like his first book was good until he sort of like we got to those Rashimi pages, right, where she was like nude and like naked and things like that. I totally understand Isla's perspective of being like put off of that and like her thinking, oh wait, he's with me. Why are why are drawings of her in this book? You know, aren't I important at all?
right, but then, there's a part of me that was like, you can't get mad. This is his art. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying? So I'm sitting there kind of defending, you
yeah.
know,
Um, I thought that too. Like, why are you getting all mad? You asked to see his like cast, like the good, bad, and the ugly. Here it is. Don't be mad at him for showing it to you.
You know, you
Yeah,
can't, man, you ask for it. It's like, show me your underwear. Oh, it's blue. I thought it was going to be pink, so I'm going to get mad at you because, it's not the color
yeah,
that I thought.
yeah.
So,
I
yeah.
totally agree. What do you think of the end, though, when he made those changes and actually wanted your opinions about everything?
Um, well, I was kind of conflicted about that because I was like, I respected it and I liked it on one hand, but I was like, Josh, really? Are you sure? Because I kind of felt like he was giving her a control in a way, and I wasn't kind of used to that from him because
Yeah.
so it kind of took me by, I was kind of shocked.
Um, yeah, I was surprised by that too. But I think him doing that was like a testament to him saying, "You are important. Here you are in my book. Let's take these drawings from here and see what happens." You know?
But I appreciated the fact that he did it, but I was still like
Yeah.
sitting there going, I was
Yeah.
humming.
Um, when you get a person like Josh who is always he knows where his future is going. He's in control. He's not used to giving up control, right? So I was kind of surprised that he actually made those changes too. But I think that was a way for him to show his true feelings to Isla. I think that was the point of that whole ending scene.
What do you think about Josh as a leading man because he's so different from Cricket and Etienne? So
I loved Josh as a leading man because he's got that sweet, creative sense in his side, but he's also got this side where he has had relationships in the past and he does have experience. He knows how to treat a person he cares about. But at least, but he was such a bad boyfriend to Rashimi. That's what he's said, but you could tell he really cares about Ayla because he pulls out all the stops for her and does what she really wants and things like that. So it just goes to show when you meet the right person, and it changes you for the better or for the better, you know.
So how did you feel about because Cricket was a marshmallow and then Etienne was a marshmallow with issues. So
Yeah,
so then we have Josh who has like all those little rough edges and there's
yeah,
nothing marshmallowy about Josh. So how did
yeah.
you feel about the difference?
I definitely out of all the guys, I like I like Josh the most, I would say, because I like a guy with the sweet, sensitive side, like Cricket. But I also um, like a badass boy, someone who's rough around the edge, is someone who tells it like it is, and things like that. Does what they want and doesn't care what other people think. I think I kind of um, um, fall into that mold myself. A bad boy is like a boy that I would look for in a character. He's one that I would be like attracted to the most. So I think of all the guys, that's how I feel about Josh, in my opinion. Not everyone likes a bad boy. Someone likes the sweet and caring side and stuff like that, and that's it. But I don't know. I like a guy that has more to him and is a little rough.
I think that if I had to choose a leading man, my leading man would be Etienne because I I like Etienne because he's conflicted and I don't know what but out of everybody, he was like my person. I was like, okay, You know,
Yeah. Um, I kind of love them all, but if I had to pick one, I think it'd be a toss-up between Josh and Cricket for sure. But I do love them all.
Cricket was like too much of a marshmallow for me. I was
Yeah,
like,
he was a little too soft.
he
I
was
think
a little
um
too.
I think that's why I like Josh, because he's got a little bit of Cricket in him, but he's also got that edgy side. He doesn't like to follow the rules. He likes to follow his own code of ethics, and he likes to control his own world.
Yeah, but the only thing about Josh for me was that Josh, he wasn't conflicted enough for me. I don't know.
Yeah,
I find my leading men conflicted. Like they have to have some sort of issue, you know.
yeah,
And he really seemed to. His issue was more external. It didn't have anything to do with him personally. It was more so. That was the part that kind of
yeah.
didn't make him my first choice.
I like guys with issues too. I like guys that are like bad and not have issues. But if I had to pick, then it would be Josh, because I'm more like him in personality too, and I like people that are similar to me. So I guess that's why I would pick him, and he would be my first choice. But
I think
it's good to have all different opinions too.
that's a good point that you just made. That you
Yeah.
said that you were more like him because
Yeah.
I think that I'm more like Etienne. So
Okay.
you just brought that to my attention. I wasn't even paying attention to that.
Yeah. Um. So, are there any other final thoughts that you have about Isla and the Happily Ever After?
Um, I like I said, I liked it because I like Josh, and I liked it because I like Isla. But as far as it being like a story that I was over the moon about, like I am about Anna and like I am about Cricket, I just didn't have that investment in it.
Yeah. The relationship developed quickly for me in the third book, and I also had a little bit of a lesser investment in the book because of it. But um, Josh is the thing that like kept me reading the book, and I wanted to see how his story would end or how his story would resolve. So that's what kept me reading Island Happily Ever After.
So how did like that overall difference of it being character driven more so than I don't want to say plot driven because the plot was good too, but like the
Yeah,
whole book wasn't it didn't encompass everything. There was a specific person that you were reading the book for rather than reading the book because it was the book. Am I
yeah. Um, for me, it it bothered me somewhat in the beginning, but as I read on, I didn't I did like the story and plot, and I did enjoy witnessing their journey together. It's just Josh is like the one thing that's like A+ for me, and that's
right?
the thing that's awesome. But I did enjoy the plot, and I did enjoy being their journey together.
So the fact that you did and you related to Josh so much, it overshadowed the fact that this was of the three the weakest book.
Um, yeah. Uh, um, in terms of like the relationship and how it was built, for me that would be the weakest part. But just for me personally, I love Josh, so I ended up really liking the book and liking the story and liking his background of feeling pressured with his dad as a senator and things like that. And um,
So how did you feel about Josh's relationship with his dad and how he handled that?
um, in that case, I didn't like how Josh handled his relationship with his dad. I think he was mostly just like avoiding his family altogether, and I didn't really like that part. I think it's important to like talk with your family and let them know how you're feeling about um, certain things in your life or whatever you're struggling with. I think it's
Right.
important to um, sort of like mend the relationships in your life instead of just like avoiding them all together, because that doesn't solve anything. It might make you content in the moment, but long term, that may not necessarily be the best thing for you to do, you know?
Right. So how, I mean, because the thing about Josh's relationship with his dad was that it wasn't consistent to who he was everywhere else in the book.
Yeah,
So,
to me, that was like a surprise and sort of different, but and that kind of like seemed out of place. But then again, like characters don't show you absolutely everything in their lives. Like a story is a story, right? And they're not real people to begin with. Like if he was like a real human being, I'm sure he would like um, have a better relationship with his dad at some point. But the book can only go so long, right? You don't have to know like every single detail and like everything a character does, you know.
right.
Yeah. So to me that felt sort of out of place, but at the same time um, it's realistic. It's like people have problems with people in their lives, or they don't get along with this individual because of this reason. Like um, I think that was thrown in just to show that even though Josh is a great character and great in so many ways, you know, he can't be a perfect character 100%. So I think that's why Stephanie Perkins decided to make um, him have a better relationship with his dad, and to him not really focus on his schoolwork, and to him like being expelled from soap altogether. So, for those reasons, I think she was just trying to show that even though Josh was a really good character, he did have flaws in those areas.
Right. You think that maybe it was she was trying to give some balance because without that, like what we were talking about with Anna, where if he didn't have the conflict with his mother, then it would have just been fluffy. And maybe
Yeah,
if Josh didn't have the conflict with his dad, and have all of those personal things going on, it just would have been fluffy because it just would have focused on the issues that he had with Isla.
yeah, and um, not many people want to read a character that's like too perfect. So I could see why she wanted to throw those conflictual elements into the third book.
So, um, but I love that book as well. I think that I was so, like I said earlier, I was so invested in Anna, and I was so invested in Cricket, and I was so invested in Josh and everybody as people, that by the time I got to the third book, I was just expecting a little more, maybe,
Yeah,
and I
um,
didn't it didn't quite get it, so I was kind of
yeah, I could see that. Like the first book and the second book were filled with like so much, and you were so fulfilled by the end of the story. I could see how a third book would be a letdown, especially with how the relationship progressed and how it started. Um, for for me, that book was a letdown in that aspect, and I was surprised. So I totally get what you're feeling there.
and I kind of feel bad because okay, This series is making me very conflicted because I feel bad at myself for not liking the third book as much as I like the other
Yeah,
two.
yeah. Um, that makes sense. But um, we all have different opinions on books, right? Just because you didn't like the third book as much as the other two didn't mean you really enjoyed it. So opinions like that don't really bother me that much. I don't really like measure my opinion of a book against another book. Like there's always comparing, but I don't feel bad if I hey don't like a certain book in a series as compared to the others. Like it is what it is. Like a series develops and changes, and sometimes a series goes downhill at certain points. Other times it's up at certain points. Um, I've had one experience like that with the House of Night series by PC and Kristen Cast. That series
Oh, yeah.
has like 15 or 16 books in it, and like the first few books are really good, but then towards the middle of the series, I think like plot lines and characters are sort of recycled and used, and um,
Exactly.
the series goes up again and then down again. So it just depends on what the series is like and what your perceptions of each book are. Just because a series was bad at one point or a trilogy was bad at another point doesn't mean that the whole book is like garbage or trash or anything like that.
Right. But I totally understand what you were saying about, about series because I was with you on the PC Cash train. I read the whole
Yeah,
thing and I loved it up until the point where it got to like Kelowna and then it was like, what, you know, so, but
yeah,
I didn't want to have those feelings about
yeah,
Stephanie Wilkins because I, it's the way that she wrote them. She made the first two books so you wanted to hug the book and walk around with it like in your
yeah,
pocket for days. And
yeah.
by the
I'm
time you
going to. I couldn't put um Anna and the French Kiss or Lola and the Boy Next Door down. I just wanted to keep reading all the way through.
exactly, but by the time you got to Isla, I was literally closing the book, going, okay, so I went from two books that I was like totally glued, book
Yeah,
to face eating, book to face, whatever I was
yeah,
doing, it was to face. And then by the
yeah,
time I got to Isla, I was like, mm, so
yeah, yeah. I could totally get that same feeling too. Um, but overall, I enjoyed the trilogy a lot, and I enjoyed the third book, even though it did have like a weak relationship or like a weak beginning, in my opinion. So, um, I think that's the end of the discussion then, since we've talked about all three books and stuff like that. Did
mhm.
you have anything else that you wanted to say besides what's already been said?
Just to let everybody know that if you didn't, for some reason, if you're a late bloomer like myself, and you didn't, for some reason, read the books yet, please go get them. Please read them. They're worth it. This book has no age group, so
Yeah,
if you like romance and if you like being swept away by your books and scenery and people and drama, you're gonna love these books.
I would definitely say the same thing. I'm a late bloomer or a late reader to this trilogy myself, and I definitely enjoyed them. And I would recommend them to anyone at any age if they are romantic at heart or if they just want a fun, easy story to read. I would definitely recommend you go and pick up this trilogy for sure.
Most definitely.
Yeah. Well, it was good talking to you, Frishawn, today, and it was good talking to you guys. Hopefully, we may do a live show again in the future.
I would love to, because I love talking to you. You make some great points and make me really think about, what I'm reading and how I'm reading and how it all relates together. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. It was fun talking to you today. Bye, everyone.
Bye.